This is everything you can do with Laravel Prompts, so you can create amazingly looking console commands. So what we have here is just an empty project, and we are going to start creating console commands. And you can do this in two ways. You can create console commands that are class-based, or you can create them route-based. And I'm going to show you both ways, but I'll end up using the console commands that are route-based because they are more easy to create. So to create a console command that is class-based, what you do is PHP artisan make command, and then you name the class for the command, which can be, let's say, name prompt command. This will create a new file in app console commands name prompt command. So let's open that in VS Code. Let's navigate to app console commands, and here is your new console command. And here you define the signature for the command. I'm going to change this to maybe prompt name. You can give a description for your new command. Let's say prompt for name. And then you have the handle method. And here is where you define how your console command behaves. Laravel already comes pre-installed with Laravel Prompts. So we are going to use that to create a nice looking text prompt for the user to input their name. So let's say name equals text. And this is a function from Laravel Prompts that will display a text input in the screen. So let's say that the label for this input will be name. And after that, we are going to display the name back to the console. But to do that, I'm going to bring in Nuno Maduro's Tailwind package. With this package, you can basically add Tailwind CSS classes to your output. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to open a terminal here in VS Code and just require that package. And now we can call render, which is a function from Tailwind, and pass in a string. And this string can contain HTML elements that we can style in the same way we style any other HTML elements with Tailwind CSS. For example, let's say hello, and here let's add a span with a class of text sky 400, for example, and then make it slightly bolder. And then we append the name that we just collected, and then close the span. Okay, let's see how that looks. I'm going to open the terminal here and then clear this up. And then I'm going to say PHP artisan prompt name. And what we get is a text input field that we can then type our name into, like Arturo. And once we hit enter, we get a problem because I didn't close the class correctly. This goes here. It's better. Let's try that again. PHP artisan prompt name. Then we type in our name and then hit enter. And now we get an output that is styled with Tailwind. But let's make this better, because if I run this again and I don't type anything and hit enter, then we just get a hello. And I want to make this text input to be required. To do that, let's go back to the function, and I'm going to move this to its own line and then use named parameters. For example, this one is called label, and we also have a parameter called required. And this parameter can accept either a boolean to make the field required, and also a string. When you pass a string, that will be the error message that is displayed when the validation fails. So let's say the username is required. Save that and open the terminal. Let's run prompt name again. And now if I try to hit enter without typing anything, I get the validation error. And I won't be able to continue unless I type something or I cancel out of the command. So let's say Arturo again, type enter, and we get the same result. And before we move on, I want to show you the other way that you can create console commands, and those are route-based. If you analyze the kernel.php file contained inside the commands folder, we have this commands function here, which is in charge of auto-discovering all of the commands that we create. First, it's going to look for any classes inside the commands folder, which is where our class is located currently, and also is going to require this file right here, routes console.php. So if we open that file located in routes console.php, what we get is something similar to the routes that we create for controllers. Right now there is only one command called inspire. This is the signature for the command. And then we have an online function that is executing that command. And this purpose is basically the description for the command. So why don't we go ahead and move the command that we just created in the class and put it in here instead. So let's create another command here with artisan command. And we are going to call it the same prompt name. And then we can just go and bring the definition of the command from the class. So we copy this, go back to the console routes, and then paste it here. And at this point, we can get rid of the name prompt command class. So I'm going to delete that one. So with just that, I can go back to the terminal and run the command again. And we get an error because the text function has not been imported yet. So let's close this and then import this text function. And now we have this use function up here from Laravel Prompts text. And I'm guessing we also need the render one from Termwind. There you go. Now we save and try to run that command again. And now it's working. Perfect. So I'm going to keep creating console commands in the routes file because it's easier and faster. So we can keep improving this command with extra validation. For example, we don't want the username to be too short or too long. And we can achieve this with another parameter called validate. This will accept a callback function. So let's say fn, and to this callback function, we are going to receive the value that we just typed. So string value. And here I'm going to do match true and then open and close curly brackets. And here is where I'm going to do all of the validations. For example, so let's say that I want the name to be at least 3 characters long. We can do strlen to get the length of the string, which in this case is value. And if that is less than 3, then this will evaluate to true, giving me this error message that I'm going to put in here. This will be the error message that is going to be displayed when this condition is met. So let's just say that's, oh, I can't use single quotes, so I'm going to use escape character and then single quotes. So that's too short. Your name must be at least 3 letters long. Similarly, I want another validation so that the name is not bigger than 255 characters. So I'm going to add a similar line here, but instead of less than 3, and this should have a comma here. Instead of less than 3, I'm going to say greater than 255. So again, if this condition is met, then I will return the error string and that will be displayed just below the text input. And the error message will be that's too long. Your name must be less than 255 letters long. And of course, we're going to need a default value in case none of those conditions are met, in which case the validation passes. So default, no. And we need an arrow like this. All right, save that. And let's give this a try. Open the terminal and run the command again. And in this case, let's write just bow. If we type that and hit enter, then we get the validation error message saying that you need at least 3 characters long. So let's change that to, and also, since there is no value now, then the error message for the requirement is displayed. So let's type again Arturo, hit enter, and then it's working. One other thing that you can do is display a hint, kind of like a placeholder in a regular text input in an HTML page. For that, we are going to use another parameter called hint. So let's say e.g. John Doe. Okay, let's give that a try, run the command again, and now we get a hint just below the text input. So let's actually say John Doe, and we get the same result. Okay, that's all for text input. Let's move on to the next one, which is passwords. Let's create a new artisan command. Let's call it prompt password. And this is very similar to the text input. We can say password equals password, which is another function from Laravel Prompts. And it has many of the parameters that we know from the text input. For example, we have label. And here let's put in what's the secret password. And let's also put in a hint that the password has to be at least 8 characters long, because I'm going to add another validation just for that. Let's also make it required. And for the error, let's say you must provide a password. And let's add validation to this. I'm going to copy the one from the text input, paste it here. And here I only want to make sure that the characters in the password are at least 8. So if it's less than 8, then we can say that's too short. The password must be at least 8 characters long. We don't need this one, and we still need a default for no. Now down here, we are going to make a decision based on the password. So let's say, for example, if password equals password, just to give you an example, then we can render a message, and let's wrap that message in a span so that we can give it some style. And let's say that this is going to be a green message. So let's say class equals text green 400, and let's make that bold. And for the message, let's say you may come in. Otherwise, let's display a red message. So we can copy this from here and paste it down here, and then change the color to red 500. And then the message can be, that's not the secret password. Okay, save that, and then let's go to the terminal and run php artisan prompt password. So we get something similar with the text input, except that here this actually looks like a password input. And then hit enter. That's too short. So technically password is less than 8 characters, which is not gonna work. Wait, is password less than 8 characters? What happens if I type password actually? Okay, password is just 8 characters. But if I type something else, like something else, then I get an error message saying that's not the secret password. But one thing that I don't like is the fact that the error message is way too close to the terminal prompt. So the space between here and here is way too short, and I would like to add some margin below the error message. We can do that easily with term width. So let's say for these two messages, I add a margin of 1. All right, let's try that again. Something else. And now I have some separation between the error message and the command line. Okay, what else can we do? Let's try a confirmation. So let's say artisan command again. Let's call this prompt confirm, and then say confirmation, and let me move this a little up. There you go. This is equals to confirm, and again we get many of the usual parameters like label, and that is not a string. Now for the label, let's say do you yield. Now for the confirmation, we are going to need 2 parameters, one for the yes response and one for the no response. So let's add one for yes, and here we can just say yes. And then for no, we can say never. And then we can also make this required, and the error message can be you must yield. And the way this works is that if you say no, then you can't move on. You have to say yes. And in fact, let's try that without the validation, because then you can say either yes or no. So I'm going to comment this parameter here. And the return of this function is just a Boolean. So either true or false. So we can say if confirmation. And let's bring this render here down to here. And here we can say, since we said yes, let's say you are spared. Otherwise, let's render another message saying, I don't know, fair enough, you're not going to be pushy. And let's change the color of this message from green to, let's say, violet. And let's make that 500. Okay, let's see how that looks. Clear the screen. PHP artisan prompt confirmation. Oh, did I call it confirm? Apparently I did. Confirm. And with that, we get this. You can choose between the two options with the left and right arrow keys. And you can choose either never or yes. If we choose never, then we get the message, fair enough. And if we run that again and choose yes, then we display, you are spared. Now, if we make that field required as we intended, then you actually have to say yes. You can't say no. So let's run that again. And if we choose never, then we get an error message saying you must yield. And then if we say yes, then we get spared. Okay, let's do one more. And this time I'm going to copy this and just modify it. So let's try a select. Prompt select. And here we can say, actually let's remove all of it. Let's say choice equals select. Let's give it a label. And let's say, what's your favorite food? And the reason why we have a squiggly line is that this function has a required parameter, which are the options for the select. So let's say options, and this will take in an array. And for the options, let's say pizza, and then the value or the label for that will be pizza, capital P. And we need an arrow here because this is an associative array. For the second option, let's say cake. And let's add a third option of both. And let's also add a hint, choose wisely. This is a very important selection. And then let's just display the option that we selected down here using the render method again. And let's display the choice. Okay, let's see how that looks. PHP artisan prompt select. Here we have a list with the options that we provided. So either pizza, cake, or both. And in my case, I'm going to choose both. With the select, you can also provide a default value that is going to be pre-selected from the list. So let's say default cake. And if we run that again, now cake will be pre-selected. Again, you can move through the options with the arrow keys and then make your choice. But not only that, because we can turn this select into a multiple select. So instead of using select here, let's say multi-select. And in this case, we get an error line here because the default for a multi-select has to be an array. So if we save that and come back to the terminal, run it again, and now instead of having little circles next to the options, you get squares, and you can make multiple selections using the spacebar. But of course, we can't display that as a string because what we get in return is an array of string values. So we have to modify this a little bit. So let's go back and instead let's turn this back into a string using choices. And in fact, let's change the label here because now we can have multiple choices. And then we're going to turn that again into a string using collect choices, and then we are going to implode using the comma separator. And then change this from choice to choices. Okay, let's try that again. Let's select all of the choices and then hit enter. And now we have all of the choices displayed back to us. And also, we can have multiple default values here. So if you want to have both cake and pizza pre-selected, just add that to the array of default values. And now you have both pre-selected. You can also have this field required, just like the others. So let's say, for example, we don't have any default value, and then add the required parameter. And then let's say you must choose at least one. I'm hungry. Now if we still haven't selected this one, so let's select that, clear, and run it again. Now we don't have any values, and if we try to hit enter, then you get the error message. And you can mix this with validation, for example, making sure that the user makes a correct selection. So let's say in this list we are also going to have, I don't know, shoes. Now we want to make sure that the user does not select that as a food. So let's add the validate parameter. This is again a callback function. And in here we are going to receive a parameter with the array of values that we have selected. So let's say values. And in fact, let's make this a shorthand function and use a similar technique that we have used before in the previous fields. So let's say match true. And for the condition, we can say in array choose values. And this basically means that if the key shoes is in the list of values that we have selected, then we return an error message. And we can say shoes are not food. And just like before, we also need a default of no. All right, let's try that. Now, if we select shoes as part of our options, let's say pizza and shoes, we get an error message saying that shoes are not food. So we have to unselect that if we want to proceed. Okay, next on the list is search. So I'm gonna copy maybe this one from here and then paste it down here, change the name to prompt search, and then remove all of this. So let's say we want to search for a user. So let's say name equals search. Let's use a label. And for the label, let's say we use search for culprit. So we're gonna look for whoever committed the crime. And now for the options, just like the select, we need a list of options, and this takes a callback function. And again, let's make it a shorthand function. And this function takes in a value, which is the value that we are searching for. So let's say that if the value is filled, that means if we have typed something to search, we're going to return a query for the user model where name like value. And in fact, let's use double quotes here so that we can escape this variable value. And from here, I'm going to just plug the name. And since this only works with an array, not a collection, then I have to turn this into an array. And if the value is not filled, I just return an empty array. Okay, in order for this to work, I'm going to need a list of users. So what I'm going to do is run my migrations. And we are familiar with this already, right? So I do want to create the SQLite database. Now let's open PHP Artisan Tinker. And let's use the user factory to create a few users. Let's say 50. Okay, good. Now let's exit out of here, clear the screen, and then call PHP Artisan prompt search. Oh wait, did I not change the name? I did. Oh, of course, you have to save the file. Of course. Let's try that again. Okay, so as soon as we start typing, let's say John. Ooh. All right. As always, I forgot to import the user class. So let's do that, save, and try again. As I was saying, as soon as you start typing, let's say John, you get a list of results if there is something that matches that name. So let's reduce the letters. And as you can see, we have one entry with Justine. And if I just look for J, then I get several entries. How about 8? Okay, I got more. And as you can see, we have a little scroll bar in the side. That means that we can scroll over more than 5 entries. And this is also customizable. If you want to have more than 5 entries before you start scrolling, let's say I'm going to select this one, and since I'm not doing anything with the input, nothing's going to happen. So let's go back here, and I'm going to add another parameter called scroll. And the default is 5, as you can see here, but you can set this to any number. Let's say 10. And since we're here, let's also grab the render and do something with the input. In this case, I'm going to output the name in Amber and say name did it. Okay, let's go back to the terminal, run this again. And again, let's use A. And now you see that the list no longer has 5 entries, but 10. And as soon as we get to the 10th entry, we start scrolling. And let's say we select Jeremy and we get the output. And so far we've been using Termwind to display things on the screen, but Laravel Prompts comes with a few functions to display messages as well. So let's create another command to demonstrate. I'm going to copy this and then paste it down here, call it prompt messages, and get rid of all of this. And the different types of messages that we have access to are info, for example. And let's say we just type, this is purely informational. We also have note, and here we can say we need a note to take out the trash. We also have warning, and here we can say you have been warned. We also have error, and here we can display whoops, something went wrong. And the last one is alert. And for this one, let's use intruder detected. All right, let's see how that looks. And there you have it. But wait, I'm missing one. And I'm guessing this is because I imported the wrong info function. Let's go and check. And actually the problem is that it didn't import one. It's using one that I'm guessing prints out information to the log. But in this case, we need to use function Laravel Prompts info. Like that. Okay, let's go back down and try this again. And there you have it. Info messages show up in green, notes will show up in white, warnings show up in yellow, errors will show up in red, and alerts will show up with a red background. Okay, we only have a couple more to go, and the next one in the list is tables, because you can actually print out tables to the screen. So let's call this one prompt table, remove all of this, and then use the table function from Laravel Prompts. And this function takes in 2 parameters. The first one is the column headers. So in this case, I want to show the user's name and email. And the second parameter is the actual list of values. So let's say we again query the user class, only taking in maybe 10 users, selecting the name and email in that order. And then I do get. And again, this works only with arrays. So I have to turn this collection into an array. Save that and let's try it out. Prompt table. And there you go. A nice looking table. Okay, who's next? Let's create a new artisan command. And the last one is by far my favorite. We can create spinners. So let's call it prompt spin. Remove all of this. And let's say we are waiting for a response and then call spin. And here we have 2 parameters. First one is a callback function that is going to execute something very complicated and is going to take some time. And the return of that is going to go into response. And the second parameter is a message that we are going to show while we're performing the callback function. So let's say that we are going to use a function here, and let's scaffold that. And for the message, we are going to say baking the cake, baking a cake, ... And in here, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to say sleep for 3 seconds and then return a message that reads, the cake is not real. And now we have to do something with the response down here. So let's output that. Now that we know that we can use messages, let's say we use the error message. Okay, let's try that out. Clear the screen, PHP artisan prompt spin. And we show a spinner for 3 seconds, baking a cake, and then we say the cake is not real. And that, my friends, is everything you can do with Laravel Prompts. So go ahead and build something amazing. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.